Ever have something change your life? Not over a year or even a month. A long conversation has been known to alter history. The Gettysburg Address, getting dumped, a marriage proposal. It happened to me, and it only took 1/10 of a second. They say life changes. What they don't say is that it changes fast, scary fast. It only took one crack, a movement I barely caught because the sun shone in my eyes, and then a slam. My life changed. My name is Sean Rourke. Just Rourke to my teachers, family, and friends. I don't like being called Sean. They named me after my uncle who died in a car accident. He is Sean. I am Rourke. A little background before I get into the story. My mom, Maggie Rourke, was a Nevada state representative for 8 years before becoming a state senator. She's been in the Senate for 11. Her final term ends in a little over a year, and she's preparing a run for governor. We live in Las Vegas, some of the time. For most of my life, we visited nearly every square mile of Nevada's 110,000 square miles. My mom represents District 19, the largest district in the state, covering just under half of it. In Nevada, districts aren't divided by geography. They're divided by population. Each one has roughly the same number of people. Las Vegas alone has about 12 districts, all packed into one little tiny corner of the state. My mom's district runs through 6 counties, 4 of them entirely, and parts of Clark and Nye. I grew up on tour buses, traveling highways up and down the Silver State. They always smelled like new carpet and coffee. On tour, Mom drank coffee by the 55-gallon drum. She dragged me and Dad all over the state. A candidate with a supportive family gets more votes. She liked to say that part out loud. I'm 24. I have a bachelor's in political science with a business minor, and I'm working toward a master's in political science, focusing on urban resource policy. Mom doesn't have one of the glamorous Vegas assignments. Her district stretches far north into cattle country and farmland. We're heading back to Vegas now, after a 2-week swing through the northern reaches of District 19. Our last stop was Dead Man's Butte, a small town about an hour north of Las Vegas, sitting on the upper edge of the Mojave. There's nothing remarkable about it, just a stop on the way to somewhere better. But it has voters. Mom loves voters. It was also the third to last stop of the Silver State Desert Eagles Urban Outreach Tour, a Vegas minor league team, same level as the Aviators and the Aces. Mom was scheduled to throw the first pitch. I remember the park. I think I've been here before. Railroad Junction Park. If you look north, you can see the butte the town is named after. I sat on the old wooden bleachers, holding a program up to shield myself from the sun. The high school band started playing America the Beautiful. The crowd, maybe 300? Including a couple of Nevadans who looked like they hadn't missed a game in 20 years, quieted down. Miss Nevada stood on the pitcher's mound and sang the national anthem. The air smelled of hot dogs and pretzels with the tang of ketchup, pickles, and mustard. A vendor wandered the stand selling cold water. We stood, hands over our hearts. Then the announcer said, "And now, throwing the first pitch, our beloved state senator, Maggie Rourke." We clapped. One of the players led Mom to a spot halfway between the pitcher's mound and home plate. A bead of sweat ran down the side of my face. It was hot, hovering around 100 degrees. I wiped it away and fanned myself with the program. Mom couldn't throw as far as the mound. She said a few words, then threw the ball. The catcher had to lean left to grab it. Everyone cheered. Mom's big moment ended. By the third inning, the score was tied at 6 runs each. The Eagles were up to bat. How can they play in this sun? Dante Sanchez, number 14, takes the bat. Some guy yelled, "Get your peanuts! Fresh peanuts! Get your peanuts!" The vendor was just beyond the safety netting, in an area that usually didn't see much action. I left my seat, pushed through the crowd until the security netting was to my right. I followed the small path away from the bleachers until I reached the vendor. The security netting had ended. Sanchez picked a bat and stood to the left of home plate, lightly swinging to warm up. I bought a water bottle, the cold already feeling like relief. I hadn't realized how thirsty I was. "Strike one!" the umpire shouted. Some man yelled, "Strike him out!" A second pitch. The umpire shouted, "Ball one!" I unscrewed the cap of the water bottle and took a long drink. Then Sanchez swung. Crack! My life changed. The hit, sharp, wrong. Something moved at the edge of my vision, from the sky, fast. I didn't see it. I felt it coming. I brought my arm up without thinking, the water bottle still in my hand. Instinct. Then, slam! The water exploded in my grip. Ice-cold water burst into the air, spraying across my face, my shirt. For a split second, I thought that was it. Just water. Something cracked inside my arm. I felt it. Not the bottle. The pain hit, blinding, an exploding star that blocked out the world. Chapter 2. "Javier, call it in," a man called out, pointing a small light at my eyes. Some guy, his face out of my line of sight, calmly stated, "Sean Rourke, age 24, about 160 pounds, blunt force trauma to the arm, an accident at Railroad Junction Park. The police have the baseball." The first guy spoke again. "I'm Ethan. Javier is assisting, and Louis is our driver. Tell me your name." His words didn't register. The pain in my arm did. "Rourke," I muttered, but my lips were trembling. My whole body was. We were inside a cramped room. No, not a room. The walls were too close. Everything rattled. I was strapped in a gurney. A folding bench was to my left. Their dark blue uniforms were crisp, professional. Javier said something I couldn't understand. "Blood pressure 147/100, Ethan replied. "Heart rate 100 and steady. Compound fracture in lower left arm." I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it was bad. "I believe both the radius and ulna are broken in multiple places." Those words slid past me. All I understood was my arm wasn't right. "Head wounds," a voice crackled through a speaker. "None are obvious, Dr. Armstrong, but he did fall after the baseball struck him. Speech is slurred. I don't know if he hit his head, but we've attached a neck brace to be safe, and he is on a backboard. He is showing symptoms of shock." Only then did I hear the sirens and feel the vibration under us. The smell, antiseptic and medical. Was I in an ambulance? Javier knelt near my right arm. "They want me to start an IV. Looks like you're heading into surgery. Hang in there, all right?" Chapter 3. I woke. I lay in a hallway, doctors and nurses buzzing about. My mouth felt fuzzy, and my eyes wouldn't focus. Somebody asked me something. Couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. Probably not a cat. Hard to tell. I woke a second time. People were with me. My left arm wouldn't move, felt heavy, like it was made of kryptonite. My mouth tasted like banana. I hadn't eaten bananas for decades, except in cookies. Does that count? The lights were too bright. Something beeped. Sounded green. Kind of a dance beep. No music, just the beep. Somebody flashed a light in my eyes. I blinked. "Hey, kiddo." My dad, I think. "How are you feeling?" He must be saying something important, probably father stuff. I tried to speak. It came out as, "There's an aardvark drinking vodka." A woman in light blue scrubs with smiley faces said, "It's the anesthesia. Doctor wants to see you." Dad laughed. Well, one second he was there, the next he wasn't. Dad must be Nightcrawler, or maybe Quicksilver. Another man stood by me. He had a big number on his shirt, number 14. I knew that number from somewhere. He looked like a baseball player. A very impressive and sexy baseball player. Nice arms. And I still don't believe them when they said I said this. You have really, 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 really nice pecs. I bet you have a six-pack under that shirt. I want a six-pack. The man's mouth opened, then closed. Then he looked at the nurse. The nurse rolled his eyes. Someone's very high. The man turned back to me. I'm Dante. I'm sorry about the baseball. The man looked so cute when he pouted. Do you want my phone number? I asked. He stood a little taller. I think you better shut up before you embarrass yourself. Can I confess something, Mr. Tall and Athletic? I said, using my flirtiest voice. You're the cutest otter I've ever seen. Want to get something to eat? Mom will buy. She's a senator. Let's get married. At least he's alive, Dad said, returning to the room. Dad's hair was going silver. He was definitely Quicksilver. Kiddo, good thing the press isn't here to record this. You have really, 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 really nice teeth, I said to the guy wearing the number 14. What did he say his name was? I tried to move my arm to grab a pen. I really, 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 really wanted Mr. Pex to have my number. My head wouldn't move. I couldn't find a pen. No problem. I sang my phone number to the tune of the national anthem. I'm pretty good. Dad shook his head and laughed. Mr. Pex simply said, Your son is ridiculous. Sigh. I was in love. As I was drifting off to sleep, I reached my good hand up to the ceiling. The world is hollow, for I have touched the sky. Chapter 4. I woke up a third time knowing 3 things. My arm was broken. My dignity was missing. And I had the worst hangover in my entire life. And that was before my arm sounded a 4-alarm fire. Dad sat by my bed, head resting against his chest. A light snore escaped. You're going to have a sore neck, I croaked out. My throat felt dry, like the sun-scorched earth in the nearby Mojave. As soft as my voice was, Dad woke instantly. What do you remember? I think, did a baseball hit me? And did I propose to some stranger? Dad smiled and suddenly seemed 10 years younger. Yes, and that stranger was Dante Sanchez, the man who hit the ball. He felt so guilty he left the game and followed us to the hospital. A nurse looked in. She nodded to no one and then set a cup filled with ice chips on my bedside table. Where is he? I asked. Cafeteria, getting coffee, Dad said. He is sorry like you wouldn't believe. Even agreed to help with the copays. Where's Mom? Dad looked away before he spoke. The nurse checked something on the nearby computer before leaving again. She went back to Vegas, Dad said. Had a campaign meeting last night. Something about donor strategy. That sounds like Mom, I said. She was always too busy to stick around. Wait, did you say last night? The wall seemed to absorb the sound. For a few seconds, only the hum of the machines around me made any noise. Dad's exhausted eyes met mine. You've been asleep a long time, kiddo. The door opened. The nurse again with a new bag for the IV, followed by the man in the baseball uniform. Top button undone enough to show the white muscle shirt underneath. The jersey had a fist size 14 above the left breast and a large version across the back. In bold black letters it read, Sanchez. He had changed from cleats to regular sneakers. His hair was black, his eyes creased at the corners, and his mouth remained pressed tight. He also carried 2 coffees. When Dante saw that I was awake, his shoulders bunched up. He handed one of the coffees to my dad. "George, 2 sugars, a little milk." "Thanks," Dad said. "Our patient woke up." "Doc says he doesn't want you to have coffee, Rourke," Dante said. "Clear liquids only." "I died and went to hell," I muttered. Dante looked at the pristine white bandages holding the brace tight to my left arm. "Rourke," he said, "I'm really sorry." His voice dropped, and he looked away, suddenly blinking. "I am." His voice cracked. "It was a bad hit, and I ruined your life." I reached out with my right hand and gripped his. I should be furious. I should be sad. I should be a lot of things. But I only said, "It's okay." Dante nodded, but not believing. "So I asked the only thing I could think of. Did you say yes?" "What for?" His hand tightened about mine. "My mind is fuzzy, but didn't I ask you to marry me?" That broke the ice. Chapter 5. 2 days later, I still lived in the hospital. Dad had called in sick. He worked as a data entry drone for a credit card company and had rented a room. Dr. Anderson walked in one afternoon. Dad sat beside me working remotely on his laptop while I watched the latest Venom movie. "Good news, bad news," the doctor said. "The good?" Dad asked, setting his laptop to the side. I muted the TV. "X-rays look excellent. Everything's holding. Those pins are right where we want them. Took 7 of them to put your arm back together." He gave me a quick smile. "What's the old joke? Will you able to play piano? The answer is yes, if you practice." "The bad?" Dad said. Dr. Anderson's expression shifted just a little. "You've been running a low-grade fever. We repeated your labs this morning. Your infection markers are higher than we'd like." "What does that mean?" I asked. Dad squeezed my good hand. My other arm throbbed in time with my pulse. "It means we're concerned about a developing infection. Right now, it looks early. That's the good part." I swallowed. "And the bad part?" "If it spreads deeper, especially into the bone, we're talking a much longer course of treatment. Weeks, not days. IV antibiotics, possibly another procedure." He paused, then added more carefully. "The hardware complicates things. Bacteria can cling to the pins, which makes infections harder to clear, so we're going to be aggressive about treating this." The silence was complete. Even the hum of the machines and the beep of the heart monitor faded to nothing. Dante stood by the door, carrying a hospital vase with flowers in it. He frowned as if shouldering the weight of the Empire State Building. Chapter 6. The nurse set me up with a walker, one of those with the IV pole clipped to the side. Dante stayed close as we shuffled toward the cafeteria. The nurse wanted me to get up and walk around. "Can't let perfectly good legs atrophy because of a little bump on your arm. Did you know your calves are the second heart in your body? The only difference is that you have to move them yourself." Between the wraps and braces, my left arm was easily 3 times the size of my right, and felt about 10 times more. No cast, not yet, still too swollen. Walking was easier now. The antibiotics had kicked in. "This is my fault," Dante said. "If I'd just hit the ball better." I stopped. "If you apologize one more time, I'm making you buy lunch." I was planning on it anyway. Hospital food. My tray had something labeled lasagna, a garlic bun, and apple pie. Dante went full chaos, a double cheeseburger with the thinnest beef patties I'd ever seen, no fries, and a cup of green Jell-O. I haven't seen Jell-O in years. We traded desserts while the TV in the corner cycled through the new news. Right after the weather, Southern Nevada will be hot. Shocker, it cut to local politics. Senator Maggie Rourke representing District 19, held a press conference today thanking the public for their prayers for her son, Sean Rourke, who was severely injured last Friday at a Silver State Desert Eagles game in Dead Man's Butte. Dante went still. On screen, my mom stood behind a podium, makeup perfect, eyes shining. My son was in emergency surgery for nearly 8 hours. It was the worst day of my life, sitting in that waiting room, not knowing if he would live or die. I'm grateful to say he survived, but he'll need months of physical therapy. Mom blinked fast, dabbing carefully under one eye. Careful of her makeup. Dante looked away, jaw tight. I caught it. "If you say sorry again," I said, "I'm ordering another slice of pie, or Jell-O, the red kind." He drummed his fingers on the table, then spoke without looking up. "Your mom was never here." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. But my stomach soured. "And it's 3 hours," Dante continued. "Not 8. That's how long we waited. And most of it was your dad telling me about kids lining up to throw baseballs at you." I groaned. "He's still telling that story? I was 12. What happened?" It was April, my first year in middle school. I bet I could read more books during the month than this kid in my English class. Loser got dunked at the school carnival. "You lost?" "I'd read 21 regular books, cover to cover." "And him?" 57. Turns out graphic novels count." "He just liked the pictures," Dante said. I laughed. My arm jerked, not much, only the width of a finger, but it was enough. The pain bit, deep and jagged. Everything from the wrist down was on fire. Tears hit fast, blurring everything. "Damn," slipped out before I could stop it. Definitely regretted my life choices. "Are you okay?" Dante asked, already shifting his chair closer to mine. "Looks like no funny movies for the next month," I said, wiping the back of my good hand across my eyes. "Got it. No rom-coms," Dante said. "I'll only bring action flicks." I almost chuckled, but caught myself just in time. The reporter's voice cut in from the TV. "Senator, is there a GoFundMe for your son's medical expenses?" Mom drew a breath, steadying herself. She was in full campaign mode. "Insurance only covers so much. Any support would mean the world to our family." Dante frowned. "That's weird." "What is?" "Your dad gave billing your insurance card. Found it in your wallet while you were in surgery." "Yeah," I said. 80-20 split. Out-of-pocket caps $6,000. Pretty standard." Dante stirred his Jell-O, not looking up. "The Eagles already said they'll cover your copay as a peace offering." "So we don't sue them?" He nodded. "Something like that." I leaned back, suddenly not hungry. "Then why is Mom asking for money?" Dante glanced at my arm, the way I was holding it too close. "I don't know," he said. "Political, maybe. You look pale. Are you sure you're all right?" The TV kept looping her speech. "I think it's time for my medication," I replied. Dante stood. "Come on, let's get you back to your room." I didn't move right away. I just watched Mom. Chapter 7. 1 week in, Dad had to return to work in Vegas. So did Dante. He worked at Mojave Sports Park, a combination sports park and mall located near downtown Vegas, the old downtown, not the Strip. When he wasn't training with the team, he worked retail selling sports equipment and apparel, even got a team discount for the Eagles. Saturday afternoon, about a week after the accident, I dreamed of being trapped in a room with no doors. I tossed, waking and sweating. I lay back, staring at the ceiling. Blankets had tangled around my legs. I smelled like a locker room. Hadn't had a real shower since before the accident. I looked for the remote. It was a combo custom for hospitals. It not only adjusted the flat screen, but it adjusted the bed, and most importantly, called the nurse. It was on a 6-foot electronic cord tethered to the side of the bed. Doesn't sound important, but at that moment it was critical. The remote should be on my bed, near my hand, where I always placed it. Not anymore. It was gone. Even the cord was hidden. Damn, I couldn't call the nurse to bring me a garbage bag to cover my arm to get a shower. Something hopeless swam through my chest. I wanted to cry. It was stupid, but after everything, a damn piece of plastic smaller than my hand was what broke me. The next time Dante visited, I'd scare him away by smell alone. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about dark things, about being alone in a town an hour north of my family and friends, with only a stupid piece of plastic to keep me company. I wallowed in darkness, until it actually started to get dark. The sky had shifted from a brilliant blue to a darker indigo. I swallowed, breathed, and tried to think. It must have fallen. The world isn't ending. I scooted to the edge of the bed and dangled my legs over, careful to move my arm as little as possible. Where was the remote? I followed the electronic tether and saw the remote. It was under the bed. I climbed out of bed, stretching the drip cord from the IV. It had less reach, only about a yard. My arm began aching. I rested it on the table to give both my shoulder and the injury a rest. I stared at the small black plastic rectangle on the floor. It might as well have been glaring back. It wasn't even far, maybe a foot, 2 at most, close enough to be insulting. I leaned to the right. Bad idea. The room tilted in protest. My left arm flared, suddenly screaming opinions. The IV line gave a sharp tug. Careful, don't stress the arm. I only had to kneel. I can use the bed for support. It's not hard. I froze halfway to the floor. The IV cord stretched to the limit. Well, I muttered. This is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a very stupid attempt to watch the Home Shopping Network. Goodbye, collection of pioneer women serving dishes. I tried kneeling. The IV pole leaned. I tried standing. My bad arm hit the side of the bed. Tears blotted the world. Damn, I said, almost yelling. I couldn't stand back up. I couldn't go down. I couldn't reach the remote to call for help. I could fall and make a huge scene. That would hurt, especially if I hit my arm. Damn, I only wanted a shower to feel human, normal, clean. I pleaded with the ceiling. Is that too much to ask? The ceiling didn't answer. But the door opened. Chapter 8. Dante stepped in, carrying a paper bag that smelled like slightly overcooked fries. He stopped, took in the situation. Me, half hanging off the bed. IV pole leaning in solidarity. Remote, still smirking on the floor. Me, face burning, eye stinging, not frustration, just the air conditioning filters, obviously. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Having a bad moment, maybe a bad day. I wanted to get a shower." He crossed the room in 2 steps and grabbed the IV pole before it tipped further. His other hand hovered near my shoulder, not quite touching, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. "Easy," he said, quieter now. "I had it handled," I bluffed. "Keep telling yourself that." Dante gripped my waist and eased me back onto the bed. "Can I tell you a secret without you getting mad?" I let him tuck me in, carefully setting my arm on its own pillow with the gentleness of handling a newborn. I let out a slow breath. My arm had started aching again. "As long as you share the fries." He almost smiled, then pointed at the side of my bed. "There's a call button on the headrest. You didn't have to use the remote." I glanced over, saw it, and a rolling heat spread across my face. I knew that. Dante reached down to the floor, picked up the remote, and set it carefully in my good hand. His fingers brushed mine for half a second longer than necessary. "There," he said. I looked at the remote, then at him. "You just saved my life." He smiled. "That seems like an overstatement." "You didn't see how stuck I was," I said. "Now feed me some fries." That did it. He laughed, quick and surprised, like he hadn't meant to. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he reached into the sack, grabbed a long, fresh-cut, deep-fried potato wedge, squirted a little ketchup on the edge, and looked at me. "Say please." I opened my mouth wide. Suddenly, I wanted to kiss him. My mouth closed and I met his eyes, ignoring the French fry, ignoring the bit of ketchup on the end. The air became serious between us, like the feel of watching heavy clouds move across the desert, drifting toward you, lightning flashing below them, occasionally striking a lone Joshua tree. Thunder rolling seconds behind each bolt, the crisp ting of ozone thick on the air, followed by the wet feel just before the rain hits. Dante's lips closed. His eyes held a kind of yearning I'd never seen before. Not guilt, more like homesickness. No, it was more serious than that, more like the feeling you have of walking into a kitchen where fresh bread was being pulled from the oven. The scent warmed the whole house. Someone stood at the counter and smiled. At you. He was looking at me like that. Mom had been on the road my entire life. She never baked bread, or even cookies. Everything was store-bought. And she didn't buy it, not very often. One of her interns did. Dad kept the house together, but we had evolved into father and son roommates. We shared the same house, the bills, stories about life. But the family closeness you see in sitcoms, that's the little green men from Pluto as far as my life is concerned. But looking into Dante's eyes made me want that. Dante looked away first, eyes fumbling. He inhaled sharply and deep, then said, "Open up," and shoved the French fry into my mouth. Why hadn't I seen it before? We were the same. Maybe we even wanted the same thing from a relationship. Dante lived on the road for much of the year, heading off to away games, constant practices, making just enough money playing ball to need a real job on top of that. He didn't have time for a relationship. But the look in his eyes, he needed a home as much as I did. Chapter 9. On Monday morning, they changed the wrap to a fiberglass cast. The inflammation markers had dropped to normal levels, but they prescribed 2 weeks' worth of antibiotics. The pills would make a hippo gag. The cast was a full-arm job, extending several inches above the elbow and down to my fingers. It only weighed a couple of pounds, which didn't seem like much until you lived with it for more than an hour. The doctors weren't taking any chances. My arm, it had improved. With the cast, it looked only twice the size of the right. The cast provided stability, dulling the constant ache. It didn't go away. Someone just turned the volume down. Dad arrived late in the afternoon to take me back to Vegas. Dante drove. He owned an SUV big enough for me and my arm. Normally, he used it to shuttle gear from their home stadium to away games. Now it was my chariot. "Kiddo," Dad said, arm hanging out the window, "let's find some food. What do you want?" Without hesitation, I said, "A real hamburger with real beef and real cheese on homemade buns." "Mildred's Diner it is," Dante replied. "Drive-through or go inside?" "I want to sit at one of the outdoor tables. It feels like I haven't been outside in 10 days. "That's because you haven't," Dad replied. Are you telling me you don't like air that smells of antiseptic? Dante asked, pulling onto the road that led to Mildred's. We went inside, assaulted with the smells of frying beef and onion rings. The dinner crowd was loud, the TV even louder. The son of Senator Maggie Rourke is returning home today. He's been hospitalized for 10 days following an accident at a Silver State Desert Eagles exhibition game. Senator Rourke says she's grateful for the outpouring of support and notes that donations have helped ensure he receives the care he needs during his recovery. My mind did that spinning thing, hearing something and not quite making sense of it. I looked at Dad. Dad looked at Dante. Dante looked at me. We all had the same look. I asked the question, "What donations? Did I miss something?" "Maybe it's for physical therapy," Dad suggested, looking up at the menu posted on the wall behind the counter. "That won't start until I get the cast off, and insurance has already authorized 20 sessions." "You're already on top of it," Dante said, stepping forward in line. I stepped behind him as we reached the front. The hospital social worker spoke with me, so it's taken care of, but that's not what bothers me. "What is?" Dad asked. "Do you think Mom's using my accident to gain political points?" Dante's face slipped into a guilty frown. I pointed at him with my good hand. "Wipe that face away, boyfriend. You owe me a cookie now." "Spell it out for the rest of us," Dad said. "Is Mom playing the sympathy angle to get more votes?" "She's done it before," Dad replied, frowning now. "Anything to get the votes," I added, then noticed Dante had gone quiet. "You don't need to feel guilty. I don't blame you. It was just a dumb accident." He looked up, eyes widening, his left eyebrow lifting. "Boyfriend?" His earlier frown faded into a disbelieving grin. "Boyfriend," I repeated, but with a little bit of flirt. After we had ordered our food, I excused myself and walked outside. I called Senator Mom. Chapter 10. She picked up on the fourth ring. "Can only talk for a minute. Strategy meeting." "I got out of the hospital today," I said. "I saw the note your father left on the calendar. How are you feeling?" I paused, regretting what I was about to say but not finding a diplomatic way to say it. "Would you stop using me in your campaign? I heard what the announcer said. Leave me out of it." Mom said something to someone off the phone. Was she even paying attention? "Did you hear me?" I said. Yes, that's part of being in a public family," Mom said. "You don't have to keep telling people." "I don't see the problem. People need to hear it. It humanizes me. People see me as having a hard time and understand." "And give you their votes and their money?" She sighed as if I were 10, not 24, and deliberately being difficult. "This is a reality of my job. I thought you'd be used to it." "I don't care what you do," I said, forcing my jaw to relax. "Leave me out of it." "Will do," she said, voices rising behind her. Someone mentioned polls. "Gotta go." And the conversation ended, but I don't think she heard a single word. Chapter 11. The cast made life interesting. Driving, a serious challenge. Grocery shopping, difficult. I had to wear a sling, and odd twist jarred the arm. Video games, awkward, with sudden spasms. Computer work, finishing my graduate studies or helping with Mom's campaign meant one finger pecking. The downside? I moved back in with my parents so Dad could help me. Nah, Mom. She treated our townhouse like some people treat hourly motels. Most of the time it was me and Dad. And sometimes Dante. He came by several times a week, and we began talking daily. Dante had a Sunday off. Amazing. No games. And he picked me up. He was also a serious photographer. He'd even had some prints published. The Bellagio Hotel was famous for its gallery of fine art, the synchronized water fountains out front,
and the Chihuly one-of-a-kind floral handcrafted chandelier in the lobby. The hotel hosted international shows including Monet, Warhol, and even Picasso. That wasn't why we went. We went to the Bellagio Conservatory Gardens because Dante wanted to get up close and personal with plants not common in the Mojave. Opened in 1998, the Bellagio rose in 2 towers, 36 stories and 33. But down below, it all blended together, casino to lobby to the vast conservatory. They had recently converted it to the summer show, a 14,000 square foot oval framed by Italian pillars and Roman arches, impossible beauty sequestered in a casino. The floral shows were one of a kind, never to be repeated. They changed every 2 months, loosely matching the seasons. The conservatory felt like being outdoors or inside an impossibly large greenhouse. A 50-foot ceiling and a massive skylight made me feel small. A gentle sound, like wind chimes, kept the space from going silent. A small pond and stream trickled through one side of the room. We walked past tall cedars and grasses topped with pale fronds, bright flowers that smelled faintly Italian, and listened to the quiet song of a red bird hidden somewhere in the trees. The real treat, rising out of the greenery and color, were 6 massive Fabergé eggs, each a different color and design. They were sculpted using living flowers. The air smelled of fresh dirt and growing things. Soft lights peeked out between branches. Trees draped in golden chains of flowers rose out of massive pots, reaching high into the space above. A butterfly fluttered over the pond, then a second. We walked closer to see, hands gently brushing, then holding, my right hand in his left. Lily pads dotted the water, and tall spiked blooms pushed up through the surface. A sapphire blue egg with a sheen like a maze rose above the pond, set in a wrought iron stand the size of a small car. Suddenly, Dante knelt, camera in hand. He zoomed in on a small red and black dot, holding his breath like the moment might break if he didn't. I leaned in, my breath catching. A ladybug crawled on a large flat leaf the size of a beach ball. The garden was more theater than landscaping, but it had the right effect. When Dante stood, our hands found each other. The look in his eyes deepened, almost pained. He hesitated. I hesitated. I felt my heartbeat in my injured arm, speeding up. The room filled with the sound of wind chimes and falling water. A bird trilled somewhere above. The air smelled of soft dirt and jasmine. We kissed. A delicate, almost frightened kiss, as if neither of us were sure the other had given permission. We pulled apart, lips wet, sharing the same air. "Maybe I can borrow you to help me move back into my apartment," I whispered, running my hand up his arm. "I'll order dinner." His eyebrow rose. "And your dad?" I smiled, but tried not to. "I think the 2 of us can handle things." Then we kissed again, pulled together like something magnetic. The heat of him, his hand at my back. Something in me loosened. I eased into him, forgetting the fantasy around us as I let myself disappear into him. Chapter 12. A few weeks later, Dante invited me to the James F. Lewis Stadium, home of the Desert Eagles. It was a Thursday, and though the season had officially ended, the Eagles were playing one last game versus the Aviators, a charity game. Proceeds earned were donated to the Sunrise Children's Hospital. It didn't count toward any rankings, but it did have a sold-out crowd. I was Dante's special guest, and they even made room for me, directly behind the umpire position. Dante introduced me to the coaches and the team. and they presented me with a signed, official Desert Eagles jersey. I even had free hot dogs, pretzels, and enough soda to put Coca-Cola out of business. When I kissed Dante good luck, his team whistled. After the game, while the guys were showering and changing, the coach found me. He took one look at the cast, frowned, and said, "You're Senator Rourke's kid, right?" I sat up, the hair on my arm standing. "She's my mom." "Maybe you can explain this then." "Doubt it. Mom never tells me anything." "But it's about you," he said. I stood up, facing him. "What do you mean?" Coach lowered his voice. "Your mom's lawyer called." My stomach dropped hard enough, it almost hurt. "Why?" "He wanted to know if there's anything in Dante's contract, anything that would stop him from appearing in a political campaign." I blinked. "What?" "He asked if Dante had any declared political affiliations, if appearing with the senator in a public service announcement would violate league terms. Said the senator wanted both of you together, something about appealing to LGBTQ voters. Honestly, I didn't follow all of it." My hands curled at my sides. I told her no. The coach studied me, something like concern creeping into his face. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Didn't sound that way on his end." Chapter 13. Before Dante emerged from the locker room, I tried calling Mom. As usual, straight to voicemail. I left a message, but she wouldn't read it. She never did. I sent a text. If I wasn't a lobbyist, she'd save it for a better time. Odds are, never. I called Dad. Mom wasn't home. Big surprise. When Dante showed up, squeaky clean and smelling yummy enough to eat, I told him what the coach had said. His response? "The league doesn't get involved in politics or religion. As representatives of the league, they prefer we don't pick sides either." "You're not allowed to have an opinion?" I asked. "We are, but we have to be careful. One wrong move and they don't do anything dramatic. You're benched and they don't renew your contract. Think of the major leagues. You see them doing ads for everything from appliances to charities to vacations, but never for a political party or agenda. That's the line we don't cross." "So you can care," I said, "just not out loud." "It's timing," Dante replied. "Say it wrong and there is no hasta luego." "Feels like waiting until it doesn't matter." "Or playing it smart," he said. I checked my phone. Nothing from Mom. "Then let's make it count," I said. Dante nodded. "I'm with you." Chapter 14. It was almost 10 when Dante and I pulled up in front of the abandoned store Mom used as her campaign headquarters. Signs across the window yelled, "Rourke for governor," in patriotic colors. The old fluorescent tubes gave off a slightly bluish light. Someone played Mariah Carey. Dante helped me with the car door. The cast has never grown easier. Less painful, but I still bang it on things. I'm no Twyla Tharp, as Dad keeps saying. The main door was locked. We knocked. Some staffer recognized me and ran to open it for us. I had never seen her before. But I understood why she recognized me the moment I stepped into the room. A flat-screen monitor projected a PowerPoint slide, a picture of me and Dante with the soft rainbow around us, and the caption underneath, "Maggie understands you because she has lived with one of you." I didn't understand it at first. I looked again, reread the words. Then something in my heart chilled. "It makes your mom sound like Mother Teresa living with the lepers," Dante said, his tone devoid of emotion. "So Mom is Mother Teresa? Where does that leave us?" My voice didn't carry far. The staffer heard it and cringed. She looked from Dante to me and then apologetically replied, "It's only a rough draft. We haven't finalized the words, and the picture is a photoshopped AI, so we need to get a real photographer, but we think it's the right direction." Dante's hand found mine and tightened. This could cost him his spot on the team. "I'll tell your mom you're here," she rambled, then stumbled to the back room. Dante's jaw had set. my good hand clenching around his. "Do you want to go?" "No," I replied. "Let's get this over with." I walked over to the computer. Traditional PowerPoint format. I could delete it, but they probably have backups. I squinted. They based it on an old photo. No cast. I hadn't worn that shirt for years either. The staffer walked back out. I didn't give her a chance to say anything. "Delete it." "All of it," Dante added. "I can't do that." She folded her arms. We were at a stalemate. Then a fourth voice joined in. Senator Mom's. "It's good to see you up and moving, and looking so healthy." Mom breezed in, her campaign smile etched into her face. "You must be Dante. I can see why my son fell for you." "Ma'am, remove my image." Dante's voice remained stable. "Nonsense," Mom said. "Think of it as an opportunity. We have a chance here to reach people who have been overlooked for far too long. That kind of visibility matters, especially to young people." "We're not doing this, Mom. Get your votes elsewhere." "Sorry, ma'am. My contract with the Eagles will not allow this." Mom gave us that nice, practiced smile. "Not even if it helps people who need it most?" "Mrs. Rourke," Dante continued, "I respect what you've done for Nevada. Now it's time to respect the people who voted for you. Remove my image. I do not authorize it." "Respect our privacy, Mom. We are not your pawns." Mom nodded. "You're acting like this is about you. It's not. We serve the people of Nevada. I've spent over a decade fighting for them, and you have a chance to help me reach communities that have been overlooked for years." "You never change," I said. "I've told you for years that I didn't like being used in your campaigns, and you've never listened." Her face softened. "I've listened, honey, every time, but I don't have the luxury of thinking only about you. I have constituents to consider. They respond to a certain image, family, stability, and if that requires personal sacrifices, then I make them." "Like missing my graduations?" I said. "You didn't come to my high school one or my college graduation either." "That is one of the sacrifices your mother has made to serve our country," Mom added, her cadence sounding more like a senator than my mother. "Believe me, there is no place I would rather have been than cheering for you at those special moments. But I have a higher duty, one of service, one of honor, one that often takes me away from the people I love." This was getting off track. Mom could talk her way out of anything, if I let her. I cut her off with a single word. "No." Mom looked like she was about to make another speech. "No," I repeated. "You do not have permission to use me anymore." "Think of the good." I didn't give her a chance to finish. I stood up to my mother, my boyfriend at my side. "No means no." She opened her mouth to say something, but Dante beat her to it. "It's been a long time since someone told your mother no. I don't think she remembers what that means." A staffer nodded slightly. A couple of other staffers looked up from their desks. Mom frowned for only a second, glancing around at the small audience, at their questioning looks. One of them folded their arms and shifted their weight to one leg. Mom knew how to read a room and how to play one. I could almost hear the gears turning in her mind. She wanted to look family first, the candidate who cared. But if she ignored her son and his boyfriend, she'd look like a hypocrite. Word would get out. It always did. I could practically hear the click of her mental abacus. LGBTQ votes or a damaged image. And then I flashed back. 10 years, middle school. I'd asked a boy to see a movie, grab a burger, nothing big. He said no, called me a couple of names, told me never to talk to him again. I came home crying. Mom had sat with me, baked Pillsbury cookies straight from the fridge. We drank Coke and said nothing until I could breathe again. What happened to that version of her? "Senator," one of the staffers said, "what do you want us to do?" For a tenth of a second, her eyes softened. She was Mom again. Then her shoulders squared. The moment snapped shut. She clapped her hands, slipping into her practiced voice. "Gather round, everyone. We need a new approach." Epilogue. Mom respected our boundary. She found another gay couple, Jasper and Enoch, to use as her icons. But that's another story. As for ours, about a year later, right before the first exhibition game for the Desert Eagles, we were married on the pitcher's mound, surrounded by the team in full regalia and a sold-out crowd. Mom was doing her political thing again, as if our marriage were part of her campaign. Dad stood off to the side, smiling wider than the Grand Canyon. Dante looked exquisite in his jersey and cap. He had to play later, but he wore that new cologne, the one that suggested, "Wait until I get you alone." Me, I wore a linen shirt and black slacks. The cast was gone, though long sleeves hid the scars, and my bones still ached in the cold. Physical therapy had given me back my range of motion. It had been a rough ride, but somewhere along the way, Dante and I had grown very close, and I wouldn't trade any of it. On the bright side, move over, Spider-Man. I've got a superpower now, setting off airport metal detectors with a wave of my arm. The end. Thank you, everybody, for joining me in Bentley. We had a lot of fun putting this together, and I appreciate you staying to the end. We'll see you next time. Peace, my friends. Oh, and if you want to get a little laugh, check out the picture of Bentley at the end of the video. I call it the Angel in White toilet paper. I love you all.